Hi, everybody. I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host for another edition of VCTV, and welcome back. We've got another packed week. As we have for the past 2 weeks, we are double episodes every single day. Why? It's quarter three, third quarter, Q3, however you want to define it, however you want to call it. This is an important time of every year when fundraising, both for investors and startups, takes the spotlight. For those that are entrepreneurs, this is the time that you go out there aggressive. You get that capital, you start pitching your company and get it in before the end of the year. If you're selling product, this is prep and leading into the holiday season. It's a busy, busy time. For investors, you know this all too well. This is the time that so many great companies are raising capital. There's so much happening. There's so much changing. That's why we put VCTV on for both of you and everybody in between. We want to make sure that you're up to date on everything that's happening from technology to industries to regions around the world so you can make the best decisions, the best moves, and be successful in everything that you do. So with that being said, today's topic, we've got a lot to talk about, and it's two very, very important topics, not only to myself, but also to all of our guests who have joined us today, and that is Edge and the Internet of Things. When we look at the Internet of Things, IoT, we look back at how this was something that started years and years ago, but really came into light about 10 years ago. And during that time, 10 years, in the last decade ahead, we've watched the Internet of Things explode and touch every single industry, all of the products, and integrate into our lives more than we ever thought possible. And there's so much more to come. The edge, 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 edge. It continues to expand us out. We continue to look at the opportunities as we go distributed. And what does that mean for you? And what does that mean for our devices? And what does that mean for communication of all of that? And how do we get more data? That's the things we're going to talk about today. Where are the opportunities building? Where are the opportunities for investing? These are areas that have continued to grow and mature, and you need to be prepared for that. With that, let's have a little bit of fun. Audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you would like to be on a show like today as an investor and share your thoughts and insights about a topic like today or a region around the world, do reach out to Elena, to the LA Token team, and or myself. We'll find the right spot for you. Entrepreneurs, I've said this once, I'll say it twice, I'll say it a third time by the end of this show. This is not just a stage for investors. This is also an opportunity for you. You get to get up here on the virtual stage and pitch us as investors, along with the live audience, what you're building. Huge opportunity if you're looking to get what you're building out there to a mass audience. Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Love to find the right spot for you. And also a big, big shout out to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for always making VCTV possible every single day, multiple times a day on your screen, your devices, anywhere you may be. With that, I'm your host today, Kyle Ellicott. Let's dive in and introduce each of our guests as we get ready to talk about Internet of Things and Edge. Gavin, first and foremost, you know the rep, but I'm going to give it to you anyways. Intro, background, welcome back to the show. Little intro, a little background for everybody.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Kyle. Gavin Johnson. I'm a lawyer by training for my sins, but I'm developing a new service in built environment technology. I'm also an angel investor in an array of startups, not just in the built environment, but more generally data, hardware, software, things like that as well. I also run in parallel to all of this, just to keep me a little bit busier, an ex-tech consultancy. So it's all about advising startups, usually around sort of business operations, but also investment when they're seeking that, and also general advisory work. My background prior to law was in science and engineering, so I do have perhaps an intuitive feel for some of the things that we're going to talk about.
Just a little bit, just a little bit. We were talking pre-show about some of that, so we're going to get into that today. And for those who don't know, I mean, with IoT and Edge, one of the exciting things is it goes all the way from deep infrastructure, all the way through industry, all the way through us as consumers and beyond with the data that's being collected. This is important. Very few technologies that we talk about can range that entire spectrum. So stay tuned. Adam, my dear old friend, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure. A little intro, a little background.
Thanks, Kyle. So I'm Adam Benzian. I'm the co-founder and was the CEO of Hackster up until recently. Gave somebody else the job so I can do other things. And Hackster, if you don't know it, it's like a large 1.5 million strong hardware and software community focusing on IoT, edge, cloud computing, etc., sharing over 24,000 open source projects on the web. And previously to that, I also had a hardware startup. So I've done a lot of that, and I know the pain of hardware and the beauty of hardware and IoT and edge. So I've done a lot of that, and also worked for Microsoft for a bunch of years. And dialing in from Seattle, happy to be here.
I love it. For the few friends and guests that we have on the show, anyone that's worked for Microsoft that lives in Seattle always throws in at the end, like, by the way, I worked for Microsoft too. It's always that little catch, a little curveball that gets thrown in. I love it. Welcome back, Adam. Jean-Marc, pleasure to have you as well. Just so the audience knows, Jean-Marc has a vast, deep history in the subject we're going to be talking about. Also, if I remember correctly, have written a few papers and theses around this, which if I haven't already, I'll grab for the show notes to provide to everyone afterwards. And with that, Jean-Marc, welcome back. A little intro, a little background.
Hello, bonjour, everybody. So my background is vast and old. That's the same thing, really. That's, I guess, what you meant. So I spent quite a few years on the finance derivative side, and the last 12 years in investment management, and more recently investing into what I would call generally a mix, a bunch of deep tech, encryption, blockchain, AI. Clearly for me, and also some venturing now into digital hedge fund, crypto hedge fund experience. So that the angle for me really is effectively the layer of AI at the edge, which blends nicely with distributed technology and blockchain. And I'm also a partner in a new project called Bonsai's Marketplace, which is putting an end-to-end marketplace for AI artifacts and deployment on a distributed framework.
Wonderful. Excited to talk all about a lot of that here in just a little bit. As again, another thing with the Internet of Things is it does also provide this connection layer for so many other technologies that can integrate into it, because it does go through that wide spectrum. So welcome, Jean-Marc. Gary Fowler, welcome back to the show. The Grandmaster of Artificial Intelligence himself gives us the pleasure of seeing him today in person. This is wonderful. A little background, little intro.
Kyle, you are the Grand Wizard of the Force, the man of a million minds. I'm grateful to be here.
I love it. Thank you.
My name's Gary Fowler, and it's great to see you today. So, I've been doing startups for 36 years, almost 37 years. I've done 15 companies. I've owned PR companies. We did I was on the original management team at Click Software. It was sold for $1.35 billion a year ago to Salesforce. I started another unicorn, near unicorn, Eva.ai 4.5 years ago with a billionaire from Russia, David Yang. I'm in Palm Beach in Florida, COVID locked in right now. Normally I'm in Silicon Valley, but I came to my house here and I can't seem to want to leave. I lived in Russia for 14 years. I started the #1 accelerator in Russia. I also started the #1 corporate private accelerator, GVA Launch Gurus. Today, I started GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios. And our job is to really connect the world together, to work with growth stage, primarily AI companies. I've written now 68 articles on AI in the last year. Actually, my next one, Kyle, is Nikola Tesla's dreams come true. Dream comes true, the democratization of opportunity, based on his writings about energy, being able to equally supply it. So I actually have that done today. And I have another article in Forbes coming out this week on deep learning versus machine learning.
A topic we are definitely going to get into. And welcome back, Gary. Lubna, last but not least, a master and wizard to Gary's points of cybernetics and the future of where we go. But I'll let you tee it up, intro and little background. Welcome back.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to ditto everything Gary says. I wish I had a cup as big as his, but hey. Yeah, well, so relative to IoT, you know, I started I was invited once to write a book, a chapter in a book on the future of the impact of the enterprise on future cities, because of a lot of my work on IoT and built environments, IoT, this, IoT, that, but in mobility. But so I dislike the word IoT because the term, I should say IoT, because it's driving people to think about in terms of technology, and it's short-sighted. It's only thinking about things connected. So, and I made up this word Alternate, which is the name of my company now. And Alternate is about really the so what of things like IoT. So it's when all, not people, places, and products are connected or addressable, and then the so what of it. So when you have all this connectivity, all these things connected, processors and sensors, and then you have connectivity everywhere. So that brings in the layers of 5G and what have you. And then you layer on top of it all the data warehousing and data science, and then the data visualization. And then you put on top of that other sciences like augmented reality and immersive technologies. And then when you stack technology like that, when you take that whole stack and innovation of it, then what is the impact of that? And what's the point of that? And that's what it really matters. What you do with it, how does it impact humanity? What is the cause and effect of it on the advancements of science? And how is that going to change humans? And we're experiencing all that now. So that's what the Alternate is. It's not about IoT, people. It's about the so what of being so connected, and so on. A lot of it obviously isn't. That's why I've done a lot of identity and security, and embedded security, particularly in hardware-based security, because at the end of the day, we are no longer defined by where we are physically, but you are also your digital extension. So my interest nowadays is obviously a lot in security and identity, and obviously AI and empathic AI in particular, and ethical AI, and what does ethics in AI mean anyway, and what's the role of distributed technologies. And obviously IoT is nothing without, or connected things aren't, are just that. There are things that are connected, but then the so what of it and all this data that's being generated, and how are we gonna change life to the better, I hope, instead of becoming enslaved as we are. Wow. And yes, I am a kind of cyborgish, but I leave that to Kyle to keep picking on me about.
I love it. The background and the history is fascinating. For those who don't know, definitely check out Lumina online and read more about what she's doing. But guys, everyone, welcome so much to the show. We're excited to have you all. Now let's dive in, and like we do here on every episode of VC TV, we like to talk about where the current state of things are. So we talked a little bit about each of you and your areas of expertise, and there's some common themes throughout, but really I'd like to start with just what is the current state of the Internet of Things, connected or not, and edge playing a role in that, because so much has happened over the past year, really 5 years, but more aggressively over the past 12 months, looking towards the future. And we'd love to come to each of you and get your thoughts on the current state of things. Gavin, let's kick it off with you. Current state of the IoT, or the Internet of, to Lumina's point, and edge.
That's interesting. From my background, which will be somewhat more naive than the rest of this illustrious panel, I see it's becoming increasingly pervasive, but it's very much point solutions. And I can come up with a few examples. You will see products, smart fridges, smart ovens, a fridge that will add milk to your shopping list. Okay, great, well done, fridge, thank you. Or you will see a smart shop. I went into a smart shop a couple of weeks ago in Lithuania, Vilnius, and very much in everyone will have probably heard of the Amazon smart shops. You walk in and facial recognition, it picks stuff off the shelf, it knows you picked stuff off the shelf, you walk out and it bills you. Exactly the same on a smaller scale. But same thing, you walk in, it knows who you are, and you take things and it bills you as you walk out. You don't need to, pay as you see it for anything. But that's a very specific thing, as is the fridge telling you need milk, the shop telling you, oh, you bought these things. It's very specific. It's not well integrated horizontally. Maybe you call it a vertical solution. But what I also see is a lot of startups, from my background in the built environment, is startups trying to tackle sort of point solutions because they need to find a way to get into the industry, into the sector. And they want to start tracking supply chains. So material through supply chains, provenance, very important. What's the source of this? Where's it been? Is it right? Is it in the right quantities, in the right type of thing, whatever it may be? But also simpler things, interacting with contracts, weather events. If anyone works in construction, you'll know weather events are a big problem. They create delay, which incurs time and cost and so on. And there's a lot of startups trying to measure that. Can we measure that? Can we integrate through smart contracts and blockchain type solutions to manage that offline? Sometimes you have AI tools sat behind it. They're looking at the weather reports. They're measuring weather from points around the site and feeding all that data back, and processing and so on. So I think it's exciting. I think it's becoming more pervasive. Other examples that spring to mind, obviously Tesla and its self-driving cars, same principle. They're processing in real time traffic data and sensory data from around them. But I think they're all still point solutions. They're not really talking to each other. Not that they necessarily need to, but they're not talking across themselves. Maybe we don't want them to. If Elon Musk is right about AI and the fears, maybe we shouldn't have our fridges talking to our cars, telling us, driving us to the shop because it wants more milk put in it. But I think it also makes life easier, and some of the other panelists are probably going to talk about that, integrating simpler things. If you can place your shopping order, I hate going shopping. If you can place your shopping order and it sends it to you and it gets delivered the next day, brilliant. I don't have to think about it. It's wasting my time and mental capacity to think about. But take from that what you will.
I think you're bringing up a good point. This is something that was teased about for many years, and now is this next chapter in one respect, but then also there's some stuff happening behind the scenes, right? More data, new infrastructure, new methodologies, new way of thinking, new habits being built or behaviors being put in place to get us to that next stage that we're moving towards as well. Adam, to you, current state, what are you seeing as things are shifting and shaping?
Okay, cool. So, and I forgot to mention that also my perspective is also because I run Hackster, but I'm part of a big company called Avnet, which is the largest distribution company of components and doing all sorts of mega IoT projects. So I see both the small and the large and how everything gets impacted. So I would say if you think about IoT again, of course, it's everything. It's hardware, connectivity, general software, cloud, analytics, AI, and all sorts of things. And there's a lot of layers within that because it's a very general word, right? A term. Like you can think about how do startups grow, react to opportunities in IoT, especially now, enterprise, manufacturing, etc. So in general, I would agree with everybody. Of course, it's becoming a lot more pervasive, but also a lot more sophisticated and a lot more meaningful. It feels like every time there's a little jargon word, IoT, CRM, or something else, or other, or blockchain, it starts with a lot of startups and a lot of noise and a lot of little devices, and it kind of gets confusing. What is it? But now it feels like the dust is settling. It's becoming a bit more meaningful, and people are really thinking about building solutions that are impactful for our life in the context of our personal lives, like you talked about what Amazon is building with their wearables. So it's no longer just yet another wearable. It's something that has a lot more meaning to your well-being, and it looks at your life in a more holistic way versus just checking how many steps you took today. So I see that both on the commercial and the consumer side, it's a lot more meaningful, a lot deeper than it used to. Also in the context of COVID and how do we see like IoT in the context of startups. I also work on some venture capital investment arm for Avnet, and I see actually startups are really struggling right now because, for example, so if startups are the companies to innovate and lead different types of unbound innovations, They need funding, and funding is now really it's kind of drying up. People are holding off from actually investing right now. So in that context of innovation, that beachhead in IoT is slowing down because there's not a lot of funding as it used to be. I also see manufacturing, which is really obviously connected to IoT because of companies manufacture all these solutions, also being kind of struggling right now a little bit because of COVID, etc. But then you have also this surge of the NVIDIAs and Xilinx on the higher end of the super powerful computational hardware. They can do things that you couldn't have done before, complemented by cloud computing and all sorts of innovations from companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and others. But overall, I see the most exciting thing that's happening in IoT is the software innovations. That the hardware has been there, it's been powerful for a long time now, but really thinking through what do you actually do with it, how do you actually apply it to real life scenarios across all sorts of things. It's comes to life with the software. So what I see also in the context of software is a lot more thoughtful, more meaningful, more user-friendly for developers to apply and use. So it's all sort of coming together, but I feel like IoT will always be a bunch of fragments. It will never be a single cohesive thing. It will be a multitude of elements that bring it together into one piece. So it's always going to be this complex, hairy beast.
I mean, we both laugh, but it's true. I mean, the Internet of Things, right? The name spells it out. Is a magnitude of different components that are coming together, right? And even Lumna mentioned this in her intro, and what she's been seeing is it's not just things as devices, it's now growing into much more organically because of that. And so I think you're right, it's always going to be the Internet of Things in this fragmented sense, but bringing and watching that all come together and how it fits and where it fits is what's so unique about IoT and the like. Jean-Marc, to you, the current state, how are you seeing things shape up?
Well, listen, I think it's a fascinating evolution, but it's I'm quite concerned about the way it's going, because the way I see it is that there is clearly, the technology allows us to decentralize and to push application to the edge, which is a great opportunity. We go from the cloud to the edge, cloud to the deep edge now. Deep edge is all the rage, and you're using very small cyber physical systems to deploy intelligence at the edge. So that's a phenomenal movement, and you can see every day different application. What concerns me deeply is the way it's deployed and the way it's becoming weaponized by large players. And it's quite, maybe I'm very paranoid here, but I can see that deep edge deployment demands a lot of complexity, fairly high cost, and it's quite arcane, right? And the way I can see things going is that some big players are going to recreate a moat, a wall garden, a vertical wall garden around those tooling and deployment for those applications. And then the end user is not necessarily going to have democratized access, and also his privacy is not necessarily well preserved in the model that is left to a few big players to kind of reconsolidate a vertical value chain around developing and deploying applications. So I think we need to be very careful in the way this is being done. And I'm really excited to see some opportunities, and also this issue of cost, right? The issue of funding, how the smaller guys and girls, or the smaller companies going to be able to compete against those growing moats. And I think it's going to be important to create an amount of decentralization by design and privacy by design on some of those construct and framework to make AI accessible at the edge to the individual, the SMEs, who might not have the learning, the expertise in terms of AI development to access. So this is what the project I'm working on, which is this decentralized distributed marketplace for automating all the processes and benchmarking, deployment, or for creating AI applications on edge devices, it's going to be important to have non-neutral, product agnostic, and non-vendor specific frameworks, which are not TensorFlow and NVIDIA, to basically be able to deploy those applications. And then, crucially, there's going to be much importance to be given to the data privacy of the edge, because we're moving to a machine-to-machine environment, right? It's pretty easy to secure the cloud, your data, my data in the cloud. It's very difficult to secure my data, your data, if we have machine-to-machine communication. And we are almost at degree zero of protection today for that. So the more we deploy at the edge, the more we need to be attentive to have right privacy frameworks and the right deployment framework to achieve that in a user-centric objective.
So I want to come back to that in just a minute, because that's a very, very big topic. Securing, as you said, securing data from one individual to the cloud is one thing, but when you get in device to device, whether they're smart or they're non-intelligent, as we'll say, and not yet connected, and we now are connecting those, what happens, right? The who, what, when, and what should I share, when should I share it, et cetera. What do I do with that data? There's so much to unpack as well there. And Gary, to you, current state of things as you're seeing it around these two areas.
Well, let's start off, Kyle. This opportunity is estimated by McKinsey to be $11 trillion by 2025. And, it's a few years ago, I had the pleasure of having dinner with the founder of DARPANET, Vinton Cerf. And so we talked about the kind of resistances that he had when they created the internet. And these are exactly the same kind of echoes that he was telling me about. Security, I don't know, I don't share my information. So guess what? It's going to happen. So, and it's in place today. Let's just talk about it. So right now, there are estimated 41 billion connected devices on the planet and growing exponentially. 79 zettabytes of data. So imagine this massive amount of data. We talk about, Kyle, many times, artificial intelligence and data analytics. So as we look at, Industry 4.0, what is it? It's, again, the democratization opportunity. So if I'm Magna in Austria and I've got part suppliers located all over the world and I've got a corporate office in Detroit, I can actually, now I'm truly connected together. And think about the opportunity with, now we've got 5G. Take 5G and put that in the mix. Take artificial intelligence. So we're in the beginning, again, of a renaissance of opportunity that's happening right in front of us. Truly global connectivity. So I'm really happy about it. On the other side of it, I actually have in the beginning of October, the top executive at Intel is going to have a conversation with me about smart cities. And I'm really, the one part that I believe we have to spend a lot more time on is security. Because as we have all these devices globally spread around the world, it gives an excellent opportunity for people to come in and start to hack and do some not good things. So we've got to really, really up the game in terms of security and threats. And that's, again, where, artificial intelligence and be able to predict. I wrote an article with the former chief security officer at Apple a couple of years ago, and I talked exactly about this situation. So we need to be able to predict where those attacks are going to take place and make sure we've got holes plugged in advance. So it's by the way, this is never going to end. If, I had a criminology course in university, I remember we said, we always come up with a solution and then the criminals come up with a way around it. So it's always happened the same way. It's like antivirus software. So that's not going to change, but I'm really excited. Industry 4.0 is here. The democratization of opportunity has started. We have to, with the pandemic and digital transformation, it gives us a ripe time to move this forward. It's fertile ground for companies to get out there and get shit done and focus on not the Internet of Things, but the Internet of everything.
Alternate.
Yes.
The alternate. Umna, I'm not. You're already there. Go for it.
It's the
Current
alternate.
state.
What can I say? Well, the current state is scary. I'm sorry.
So, I mean, I'm really bullish, Kyle, about the opportunity in automotive, textile manufacturing. Imagine on the manufacturing floor, right? The kind of controls we can have today, the kind of things that can be done.
Absolutely. Luna, to you.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Yeah, again, even more scary. No, it's we have to be, there's like I said at the alternate, control the data, control the power. What's that got to do with edge and got to do with IoT or connectedness? IoT is really Internet of Things. It's really, okay, it's about things or endpoints. Let's just drop whether it's a living thing or an environment or a person, which is what I'm arguing, that it could be always, it's when everything is connected, when the environment is aware of your presence, you yourself are connected. And if you look at, we talk about IoT, we have sensors. So what is it's sensors and processors. Sensors everywhere, processors everywhere. Sensors are sensing your state of being, the state of the environment, the state of everything, and processors computing its meaning and interpretation, all of it generating all sorts of data. And it's like, if you could see how much data is in the air, you would not be able to see at all. So what does that mean? Gary's, all of his points are obviously excellent as usual. Security, which is why after writing the alternate paper, I moved into embedded security at the hardware level, because I figured, and after that, it's going to become at the energy level, where it would be my trajectory, because I went into hardware security because that's where you're going to be needing to ensure that if you have any integrity in the data that you are consuming, thinking that it is what you think it is, and that you are making your decisions based on it, that it's actually authentically the data you think it is, and it's coming from the source that you think it's coming from. Which is why security becomes really critical now. And the attack surface has become bigger. And the more devices we have connected, or the more people, the larger the attack surface. And yes, to Gary's point, I mean, I say it slightly differently. I say man make, man break. So for every innovation we come up with, and for every level of security, it will find a way. And really, it's not about the technology, it's how we apply it. So the problem with all of this is that it's making us all super capable. And we're super capable if we are driven by kindness and advancement of humanity. Amazing things will happen with this hyper-connectedness, because all of this connectedness and all this amount of data that that is being generated will give us enormous, it's an exponential advancement across all fields of science, and just the causality, cause and effect that we can assess that we never had before. Our ability to be aware of ourselves and of others around us. So why moving it to edge? And by the way, IoT, edge, 5G, they're super hyper related. And when you look at 5G, and one of the biggest use cases for it is metadata. And what is that? That's sensors on your body measuring your own well-being, which is very huge for me, and it's what Anora is all about, and empathic AI. So as we get to know your state of being, already they have our minds, whoever is they. We are influenced. We think we are making our own choices, but how many at some point your preferences are really not much more than a mere reflection of the recommendations. After all, when you go to a supermarket, you can buy anything you want as long as they have it in the store. Or as Ford said, you can have any color car as long as it's black. And so edge, for me, what is really critical is to be very cognizant of the fact that we are being now monitored psychologically and physiologically. There's not much left. And so it's really, for me, it's really essential to move the intelligence to the edge, but the edge of the individual. That's my interest. And that we must augment human intelligence with the power of compute and retrieval that AI and this technology gives the enterprise, so that we can be node to node, so that people can actually have any sense of self left. In my opinion, we have been living in a world of connectedness for a long long time, and it's in our bodies. You have your heart pacemaker or what have you. That's an IoT device, by the way. It's remotely controlled, remotely accessible. So if you it's about extending our senses. I think really need to get a lot of attention to that. I think we need IoT and edge compute. Obviously, there are many other reasons why you'd want to do edge, because you don't compute, for example, all this meta health data, other than talking about who controls the data and where it sits and what needs to traverse over the network. They're highly related, because every device, if it's connected, the point that it's connected is being accessed through the 5G and beyond. So the attack surface that we need to consider is up and down the stack, really up and down the stack of ensuring that we have digital trust from silicon through to service delivery. And we need to, and I hope that we will see a lot more of putting the individual actually at the center of their technology. Yeah, I'll stop here before I scare everyone.
No. I think you're spot on. You're spot on. I mean, I see Adam shaking his head. And Adam, do you have a comment to add on to that? I saw you unmuted.
Yeah, a couple of things. So first, I guess I'll address the whole issue about the humanity of it, and what do you do with so much data, so much. It's in a sense, it's surveillance, right? Whether you like it or not, you're not doing it maybe on purpose, but it is, because there are sensors, there are cameras and microphones that listen and do all sorts of stuff. So what's really interesting is also to talk about that. Companies like IBM, Microsoft, Amazon, for example, they stopped selling facial recognition information, and in fact are trying to see like how do they actually even provide this kind of technology to the industry, because they just ethically don't see it as being used for good anymore. And it's so complex and so hairy, and I don't want to get into that, but level you start seeing.
Adam, I gotta say something. I hear it, but I just got from on the US side, a governmental agency. I have one of those companies that does facial recognition, and they're using it. They're interested in it for missing and exploited kids. So, I mean, on one side of it, I had actually one of the US diplomats I'm in discussions with now, and also with this group from the government. And I mean, it's a double-edged sword, and I, on one side, I feel bad about why people think it can be used. On the other thing, they're really concerned. Look at all the sex trafficking and kids that are, being taken away. If you can't recognize who they are, you might miss them, and guess nothing good happens, right?
You're absolutely right. And what's interesting is that this whole statement that they've made that they're not going to sell facial recognition software to law enforcement, right, organizations, that in itself is a double-edged sword, because they actually needed to do good, not only to do bad. And I'll tell you one more thing. We're working on Hackster right now on a project to build trackers for wildlife and elephants, and particularly that might be able to also take some snapshots for all sorts of reasons. And it's not just about poachers and people that harm elephants, it's about really understanding how they live, what they do. But even that could be used, right, for the wrong way. You kill an elephant with a tracker, and then you get all this data, and then you can actually then track all sorts of other animals, and it's just like a gold mine for the poachers, right? So you have all these kind of opposing opinions and also use cases for the same technology, but at least people are concerned about that, and they're kind of looking to do things, they're a little better, and they think about humanity first now, not just, just a technology, I get to sell it, so who cares how people actually use it. There are repercussions, and people should be responsible about the applications that they're being used for. So that's one thing. And the other thing, when we talk about also sensors and all that, so we have so many sensors and microcontrollers and all sorts of things running everywhere. They're connected or not connected, or sometimes connected. But I've learned something amazing recently, that but 99% of all data that comes from sensors and all these tiny devices everywhere is never being really used. And if it's used, it's just mostly for telemetry. So you create dashboards, temperature and all sorts of environmental data, but you can't really train them. You can't run machine learning on them. So you can't really do anything more intelligent than extracting information and learning about the condition, but you can't really do something with it. This is the one area that I see is changing, is going to change everything. That it's something that started at Google with TensorFlow. They created TensorFlow Lite, and TensorFlow ran on big GPUs, big processors, needed a lot of power and connectivity. Then they came out with a TensorFlow Lite, which gave birth to this tiny machine learning technology that now you can run machine learning models even on these tiny sensors. You can extract data from a sensor that was just a kind of like a dumb device. You can learn about it, build a model and build it back into the sensor, and now the sensor is becoming this kind of like intelligent device. So now you have all these things that just exist everywhere, but it's kind of harmless. We just talk to them, they do something and that's it. Now they can do a lot more and you can train them in continuity. So this whole field of, again, IoT and everything is connected. But embedded computing wasn't all connected up until now, and it's only now changing. So now you're getting another layer, even deeper. They're not even on an embedded layer. You can now make all these dumb devices that have already been deployed do a lot more, good and bad, mostly good, than before. So that's another super interesting thing, So I see that also as something that's really going to change a ton, that machine learning and making dumb devices smarter, which you couldn't do before. You can do this with this new TensorFlow Lite and TinyML framework, which is a breakthrough.
So one area I want to touch on that's been a common theme is around security. Because you bring it up. I mean, we now take these, what were once, we'll just say, non-intelligent, non-connected devices, we make them connected. We're leveraging technology to all of a sudden allow them to give data. Where's the security aspect, right? Where's the privacy aspect? What happens when these things start transmitting? And so Jean-Marc, I want to kick it off with you as to where you see things and what people need to be aware of when it comes to security and data privacy, or the lack thereof, in many cases around the edge and these devices, whether they're smart, not, et cetera.
Yeah, I think there are two distinct issues here. There's the issue of security and the issue of privacy. Issue of security is basically so many sensors everywhere, not very well protected. Someone can come in and hack and basically take ownership, drive your car, right? Someone can go there in the sensor. If the sensor has any intelligence that acts at the edge, right? That's the point of edge AI, is to have inference at the edge, so decision can be made there and not by pinging the cloud. So if you do not protect properly that edge intelligence operator, you can be hacked and anything can happen, right? Crash, or your fridge becomes wild, whatever. That's one issue that has to be, that's one attack threat model that has to be remedied, and it's doable, right? It's a question of doing it maybe a little bit ahead of time and having that in a roadmap before deploying edge devices everywhere without any, it's the Alexa syndrome, right? Then there is the issue of privacy, which leads into the issue of identity, which is different. And here, I mean, I respect what's been said here. It's about really, ethical AI, trustworthy AI. There has to be effort for the proper governance, whether it's regulation, whether it's state regulation, like in Europe, GDPR, whether it's SRO, self-regulated organization. That's another avenue that's more likely to be happening in Anglo-Saxon countries, which I respect also. In any case, it has to be done. The only thing I would say is there are solutions to all of these issues, right? So there are solutions for machine-to-machine security in terms of encryption. There are issues for privacy at the edge. And one of them is called identity frameworks, could be running on the blockchain, where the owner of the data is controlling it through a wallet that is, it has the key for that wallet. So you devolve the authority there as opposed to having Mr. Cloud somewhere in Seattle to decide ultimately has the ultimate key to do whatever. So there are decisions can be made. There are a lot of heavy implication. And what I, again, would like to stress is that I resent a bit that a lot of decisions are being made today for the sake of going to market that do not address both the issue of security and the issue of privacy. And I'm not trying to say I don't want AI at the edge. I want it. It's a phenomenal democratization move, but if it's badly done, it can backfire. And so there are some very exciting startups right now that are actually working on encryption, privacy, machine to machine, and then some very interesting new framework for marketplaces and for blockchain identity framework to take care of the identity and privacy issue.
Adam, do you have a comment? I see you unmuted.
Yeah. Am I mute? Okay.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay, yeah. I think, yeah, again, so it's a big issue, right? But I think that a lot of people talk about it all the time, and there's a lot of statements, but I haven't seen actually a lot of one big company that actually placed a huge bet on it or said, we have this new software, new layer, etc. I've seen a few things like Microsoft has the Azure Sphere component, which is really, it's a hardware protection layer, including, I think, up to 7 protection layers from the cloud that you can turn on and off. It's almost like the antivirus for IoT. But so you see a lot of people talk about it. Some companies play with it, but I haven't seen like a massive deployment of it. It's like, because you know why? Nothing terrible happened yet. That's the problem. That's the blessing. It's like we know of the hijacked pacemakers possibility, or cars and all sorts of machinery and power plants, but it didn't really happen yet. So everybody's just kind of talking about it, but not doing much about it. So I haven't seen anything meaningful that I can point out to say, hey, check out this initiative or this company or this product that is going to just change how IoT is perceived and security and all that. But people building security as it goes, right? As it happens, everything that we know about from, encryption and if there's a human interface to factor authentication or even more beyond that. So it's all the normal stuff. Nothing unusual. I don't know.
Adam, don't you? I mean, that's an opinion, personal opinion. But don't you think that most of the product development along those lines is basically guided by large companies that are cloud-centric, that do not really that much care deeply for the edge, because it does ultimately reduce the annuity they have on the cloud businesses. So there's no rush. If I'm a large there's 4 companies. I run all that cloud somewhere in the northwest of the US. What incentive do I have to deploy fine-tune, user-centric solutions that involve encryption? Very little, right? So I think there is a bias that is unfortunately due to the market structure of the AI delivery industry today, and that, in my mind, has to change.
Gavin, I see you. I see you have a point, Gavin. Sorry, Adam. I don't mean to cut you off. Gavin's been smirking over here, ready to jump in. So I'm going to give him a chance.
I've been itching to jump in. This is a great conversation. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I think I was trying to reduce the number of points I was wanting to make, and I think I boiled it down to maybe 3. I agree with the security versus privacy issue, and it reminds me very much of airport security and how airport security reacts basically to terrorist threats and hasn't over time. So it was in the past, nobody got checked. You just got on your plane and off you went. And then somebody brought a bomb, and now you go through security, and then somebody put a bomb in a shoe, and now you take your shoes off, and on and on and on it goes. And it's highly reactive. So I take the point that nothing, as far as I'm aware anyway, is bad particularly has happened with IoT. Your fridge hasn't been hacked to order you 25,000 gallons of milk when a tanker turns up. It's just not happening. And plus, I don't know, that's kind of funsters hackers. Sounds like a sort of a Halloween trick or treat day. But yeah, I mean, surely the answer comes around communication, and as Jean-Marc said, I'm sure that it's not beyond the wit of man to solve those problems in a fairly simple way. But But just thinking about data and the nature of IoT data in particular, it's live data. It's only important as it happens, because your car just has to make a decision, turn left or right. Once it's turned left or right, it doesn't care whether it did turn left or right, only that it has done and you're proceeding safely on your journey. Same with weather data. And as the example I gave at the start about construction contracts, we only care if the weather was wrong on a particular day that led to a claim. That should be saved, because then we'll need to know. If the weather was fine, who cares? Get rid of the data. It's irrelevant. It just doesn't matter on any level to anybody anywhere. So I think there's a need to really understand what data is, what we need to do with data. Do we need to save it, store it, or can we just delete it and not worry about it? And maybe there's part of the answer there is once we've gone through a milestone, the car's turned left or right, it's just irrelevant. And I think my last point, because I just wanted to touch on it, the nature of identity. Obviously, as a lawyer, I have had a lot of fun with GDPR and things like this. And what GDPR is, very crudely, is a step towards what the blockchain world might call self-sovereign identity. And that is because the GDPR effectively puts control of data, with few exceptions, into the hands of the individual. And that's surely where the answer lies in terms of identity and the control of your identifying data. That said, every one of us has a public facade as well. You know, you walk out, you walk down the street, then are you a private individual? Legally, probably not. You're a public citizen, and you're expected to behave as public citizens do, abide by the law, and so on. So as Adam pointed out, and Gary well pointed out, the double-edged sword of facial recognition systems. Well, should I be worried about my face being recognized as I walk down Oxford Street doing some shopping? No. Why? I'm not up to anything nefarious. If I am up to something nefarious, then I take comfort in the fact that, well, as the non-nefarious party, if somebody else is up to something nefarious, I should say that they're likely to be caught. You know, they're protected by that. And for the sake of my picture appearing on a video somewhere that nobody's ever going to look at anyway, then should I be worried about that too much? Probably not. But it's a complex issue, and legally it's heading in that direction. And I think blockchain is a solution in part, in the edge and IoT space as well, to that issue of identity. Things and privacy, security is probably not within my gift to opine on, and Jean-Marc, Adam, and Gary Lubner are probably better placed to opine on that.
Well, but you continue the theme. Yeah, you're continuing the theme. I mean, security, privacy, communication. Lubna, go ahead. Last point, and then I want to get to the areas of opportunity for everyone. Go ahead.
Yeah. So security and privacy are absolutely two different things, and very often we are manipulated into giving up our privacy in the name of perceived security, as we do at airports and other things, or when we are giving up our freedoms and privacy in the name of trackability for public health, like the stories with COVID. So, which you can, by the way, still do that without giving up your privacy, and without becoming just another body in the Borg. It's a big topic, though, privacy and security. But blockchain, distributed ledger technologies, particularly self-sovereign identity, and it is a big step in the right direction. GDPR is a step in the right direction, but we do need to. It's really about what we need. Technology is a double-edged sword. No matter what, all technology, anything in life is a double-edged sword. It's what you do with it. Anything we've created. So it's not about turning our back and saying, oh, we're going to not do this anymore. The reason there's a lot more need for security now, because the attack surface is larger. And yeah, IoT is, airplanes have been hacked through entertainment centers, cars have been hacked, everything has been hacked. And if it's been hacked by white hackers, it can be totally devastated by if it were being hacked by otherwise. And it's even, the threat isn't as much just the bad actors, it's also rogue governments. So you know, it can be very easily where your house will not allow you in anymore and your car will not allow you to. We've even had discussions of whether the car should decide based on the way you look when you sit in it to call the police on you because it thinks you're too drunk. So our ethics and our policy and our governance needs to be re-examined and needs to be looked at very, very carefully. And more importantly is our economic models and our economic drivers. So we can turn blue in the face talking about all this stuff. If we don't change the way we measure success and profitability and the way we look at what drives us as humans, is it profitability for the sake of, I almost cursed, profitability and accumulating, vertically accumulating wealth for the sake of accumulating it, like we do so well in the state of Washington. And by the way, I worked for Microsoft too at one point, and I have a storage unit in Seattle. But it's really, we really need to wake up. We really need to wake up to what is important as humans, and that is this common decency. We need to look at, to move towards a care economy, to recognizing that our best interest is in that of everyone else. And then all this amazing technology we have, sensors and all that, processors and all that, AI and all the things that I have dedicated my entire career to, have a phenomenal way of accelerating it to a better place. But we must change our mindset. Yeah, I'm going to shut up now because, you know,
No, listen, this is why we have these discussions here on VCTV. People need to hear these things. We need to get this information out. So honestly, no apologies, you guys. Your opinions are perfect. Thank you so much for sharing.
People need to wake up and take responsibility and become more aware of their place and their role in it.
Absolutely. Well, and all of our role. I mean, that's the thing. The Internet of Things, just to come back to that main topic, is everything, right? We at one point switched the term. So at one point it went from connected devices to IoT everything to then IOE, the Internet of Everything. And we then left that. Didn't rhyme as well, I guess. So we went back to IoT, the Internet of Things. But to Lumna and everyone's point, the Internet, one second, Lumna, I see it, don't worry. The Internet of Things, IoT, is a connection of everything. People, places, and parts. We'll just sum it up as that. So it's
but remember, people are not things.
Correct. People are a part of it all, because as we know, I know I'm killing you. I know. And I
love you, but I love you, Kyle. I love you.
I know.
I thought you were going to say people were part of the problem, Kyle.
Oh, yeah, they are.
It could also be true, maybe.
People, places, and parts or things are also a part of the problem, as they are a contributor. So, Lumna, I know you have a second. Go ahead and
that's it. It's just really, you just said it. It's really about governance and policy and just a wake up call. Let's figure out what ethical means.
Look, being in this world for more than 10 years, we can all look at this and just say, look, we've had the fun. Okay, we've had the fun connected devices. We've had the fun consumer, little connected devices that we've all worn or tried or had or not had anymore. Now it's, to Luna's point and to everyone else, it's time to wake up. This is no longer a game. This is now impacting so much that we all do and how we live our lives, and can affect us positively and negatively. And it's time to wake up and get serious about some of these things that we've talked about, from security to communication to privacy and everything in between. So, and those that are listening, if you're, and Adam, I see you clenching. I know you got a point too. Don't worry. If you're building in this space, pay attention. Wake up and take note of the things that we just all mentioned. Get ahead of the competition. But from that standpoint, to Lumina's point, it's not just about profits. It's also about building what we should have and building those ethics and building those thinking into your products. Now, on the other side, if you're investing in this, these are some of the areas you should be listening. So guys, we are at the top of the hour. So I do want to come to each of you for closing thoughts, because it is Partner Monday and we're going to run over about 2 minutes. So quick closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you? Adam.
Oh, where can you find me? Okay, on Twitter at Adam Benzian. Otherwise, you can find me at adam@hackster.io. I also just want to touch quickly on the ethics and all that. Absolutely true. Before you get a job, take a job, start a company, talk about it, ask the questions. You know, what is your code of ethics? Who do you sell to? I do this when I advise or invest or want to join, you know, new organizations now. And I've seen companies that turn away and walk away from business because it does not, you know, it's not compatible with the code of ethics. So I feel like everybody has a responsibility to be part of this. So last thought.
Absolutely. Thank you. Gary Fowler, last thoughts. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, sure. Well, the internet of everything is here to stay. And so adapt. The digital transformation is upon us, and it is an opportunity of a lifetime. Cybersecurity is a particular area that could be interesting for startups and investors, and I would take a great look at it. You can reach me, Gary Fowler, at LinkedIn, or Gary at gsdvs.com. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks, Kyle.
Wonderful. Gavin.
Where can you find me? LinkedIn, probably the best place, or through my company, Agenium, just agenium.co.uk. Final thoughts. God, a minute. Well, it's not like you to put me on the spot, Kyle. I think there's a lot of thinking that needs to be done, if I can put it in a very trite way, and we need to spend more time and put more effort into trying to understand. Lubna alluded to ethics, and as did Gary and Adam. Understanding what it is we are trying to achieve, what is the outcome that we are actually looking for, not just, oh, we can do this because we can do it. Which reminds me a little bit of the quote from Jurassic Park. You know, just because we can doesn't necessarily mean we should. I paraphrase Jeff Goldblum horribly, but it's something to be borne in mind. I think. There you go. Film quote as well.
That was good. Lubna, closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you?
Well, finding me is easy. I'm at or / Lubna Dajani everywhere. That's because I've been around for so long. Like, otherwise, you know, again, it's really about ethics. It's about keeping the true, what really matters. We have to bring our eyes back onto the ball, but the ball isn't the money, people. The ball is the quality of life. So we've been doing some mislabeling, but in terms of investments or interest, supply chain and transparency and accountability in supply chain, especially for sustainability and regeneration, IoT or connectedness can serve a tremendous enabler in that. And then if we look at things in that sense, there is enormous opportunities for creating new value. That is regenerative and that will give you sustainable profitability and relevance by bringing good things to life, instead like GE, good things to life. Right?
Jean-Marc. Thank you, Lubna. Jean-Marc.
Well, listen, I think, again, I believe it's a great opportunity, massive opportunity. I like to call it edge intelligence as opposed to IoT or edge AI. Because it's intelligence at the edge, really. And then in terms of investment opportunity, to be concrete, I think there's two layers of the service layer, application layer. There are a phenomenal opportunity for startup to build things like data labeling. Data labeling is super hot at the moment because a lot of data, it's crap data, pardon my French. So you need to label it so it can be action into intelligence at the edge. There's benchmarking. You need to deploy something on the device, you need to benchmark. It's simple iterative engineering process. Encryption, so machine-to-machine encryption. So just to name three necessary build sectors for startups that are not really, as Adam said, being visited by the large guys because it's kind of too specific. And then at the infrastructure level, it has to be distributed and democratized. And there's two ways to get it. To develop the framework of marketplaces where you functionally distribute this end-to-end supply chain of deploying an AI application on a sensor. It can also be but not necessarily, certainly not initially, but maybe over time, be plugged into a blockchain type consensus infrastructure where you also link in with the identity wallet layer. So that's another area of focus where I do invest, and I see a lot of exciting projects. So there's 5 opportunities here amongst so many, but please build, because otherwise the big guys are going to capture all this. They're going to weaponize it for something that might not necessarily be the most optimal product at the end for the end user. You can find me in London, Paris, or Lausanne, and preferably on LinkedIn if you want virtual connection.
Wonderful. Everyone, thank you so very much for all the thoughts and insights today. To you, our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, make sure you click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today. And again, startups, thank you, Gary. Thank you, Gavin. If you'd like to be on a show like today to pitch us as investors along with the live audience, thank you, Lumna. We'd love to have you. Please do reach out as well. And thank you, Jean-Marc. All of the panelists today are available online 24/7. 365. You can find them to continue the conversation amongst the topics that we discussed today. And I highly recommend it, as each of them are an expert in their field. And this is something that's not going away, as we talked about, and will be here for years and years and years forever in some of the topics that we discussed to come. With that being said, a big shout out to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for always making VCTV possible every single day. And as I mentioned in the beginning, today is a double episode day. We'll be back here in just after a short little break to talk to you a little bit more on the next piece of this bigger bubble that we're talking about. And we'll be back here. I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host. You can find me online everywhere, Kyle Ellicott. And we'll be back here shortly on more